Hello YouTube, this is Geeky Austin, and today I am going to go into a spoiler review of Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson. For this review, I am mainly just going to focus on plot points and spoilerific things that I felt that I wanted to talk about with this movie. So if you want to know what my personal thoughts of the film were or anything else, I have a non-spoiler review on my channel that you can go to, and a link in the description, and I will also put up a link at the end of the video that you can click on and go check that review out there if you don't want to be spoiled or if you would like to know what my personal thoughts were. Alright, and first off, I would like to do something different. I want to go into my negative thoughts on this movie and get those out of the way before I go on to my more positive things I want to talk about. First off, right off the bat, the Canto Bight sequence. Now, this entire sequence takes place on a planet, and this whole thing is a casino joint. Very, very similar to casino joints of today. Lots of gambling, lots of money play, and lots of people gathered around playing these random games. And outside they even have a horse racetrack with these little alien critters running around. And the biggest problem with all of this, the idea of this kind of stuff being in the Star Wars universe honestly doesn't bother me, because Star Wars at times has tried to mimic the real world in certain areas, and it's like, okay, this is not much of a big deal. If you got an entire society of the Republic, or even political stuff like in the prequel films, I don't see gambling being much different than any of that other kind of stuff. So again, it doesn't bother me too much the scene is here. But what the problem with this entire sequence was that it drags at some point, and I really felt that it should have been shortened down. Certain things should have been cut out. Now, it was a while since I last saw the film, but just going by memory, I'm thinking that this entire sequence plays out for about 20 minutes or more. Somewhere around 20 minutes. I could be wrong. It could have been less. It could have been more. But either way, this entire sequence should have only been, at the most, a little over 10 minutes, I feel. Just a little over 10 minutes. Because the main point of this entire sequence, other than its moral, was just trying to find the code breaker. Trying to find this guy who could shut down the new device that the First Order had. The First Order now has a device that can track objects through hyperspace and follow them. And honestly, I do like that concept. But that's what the whole thing is. They need a code breaker to stop this from happening. And the biggest problem, like I said, is that this whole thing drags out, because all you need to do is get the code breaker and just get out of there. There's also the moral scene, which I talked about. Rose and Finn are on the planet looking at this horse race, these little critters running around, and Rose is talking about how much she hates the place because of animal abuse. These horses are being mistreated, being poked at to death and everything, and this is not much of a bad moral, because in our modern society this stuff's happening a lot. So okay, it's an understandable moral, it's relatable, so it's not too bad. But again, it drags on, because right after that, after Rose and Finn find the code breaker, they get arrested because they illegally parked their vehicle on the beach, because I'm guessing this planet here has some sort of security thing. You're not allowed just to park your vehicle anywhere, of course. They get thrown in jail, and instead they find somebody else to be their code breaker, who is DJ, played by Benicio del Toro. And this guy, he's not the main code breaker they were trying to find, but they decide to use him anyways. They break out, they decide to break out of the entire place with the horses. They hop on the horses, they take off with these horses, and this entire chase sequence goes on for like maybe 5 minutes or more. And again, the sequence looks cool, it looks fun, you can get a few laughs out of it, but this definitely could have been cut short. You could have easily not even included this horse chase. You could have just released the horses and had them go on their merry way. Either way, they eventually do escape the planet and leave, and the story starts to pick up its pace and go back to normal. But again, this entire sequence is just a bit of a drag, and its only purposes were just to introduce the Codebreaker to us, who is DJ, and also to show off these little kids in this scene right here, because at the end of the movie, one of the kids is shown the ability to use the Force to grab a broom. And this was obviously done to once again to tie into one of the final messages of the movie, that there is always hope. That basically trying to hint at that the Jedi and the Force never will truly die. So this entire Canto Bight thing, so much of it could have been cut out, but again, so much of it needed to be kept in, because the movie definitely needs these scenes to help out further future scenes. Okay, the next bit of negative thing, which like I said were the borrowed elements from some of the previous Star Wars films, mainly Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And the biggest example of that, of course, is when Rey is brought forth before Supreme Leader Snoke. And the number one scene that mostly everybody already knows about now is the scene where Rey is brought forth to Supreme Leader Snoke. The whole borrowed element thing of this is that Rey intentionally gets herself captured by Kylo Ren. She is handcuffed. Kylo Ren has her lightsaber. She is brought forth before this huge leader who is sitting on his throne, surrounded by guards. And this leader decides to go into her head at first, then changes her mind, decides that he wants her dead, but before doing so, shows her that everything that she was hoping for it's just going down the toilet. It's just getting bad, because the Resistance has been found out, they're being shot at, they're being destroyed. Rey is furious, she goes to grab for Kylo Ren's lightsaber, tries to smack at Snoke. Snoke stops that from happening, and has to have her executed. Again, all these plot points sound very similar. It was nice to know that they wanted to throw a few nods in here and there, but I just felt this was just a bit lazy, that so much was taken from Episode 6. And now the last one that just about everybody at this point knows about. Everybody has complained and cried about it. Just about every major character that was built up big time in Episode 7, Force Awakens. So much build up from these characters, especially over these last 2 years, of people theorizing about them, wondering what's going to happen to them. These characters were tossed aside. Yep, Snoke, Phasma, and Luke are dead. Now, I'm not too upset these guys were killed off, because for some of them, I do love the resolutions that were done with them. For Snoke and Luke, definitely, I enjoy the resolutions that were done and the entire build-up that went to their demise. Phasma was honestly a bit disappointing, I can agree. For her, she has a fight with Finn, so she does a lot more. She has a lot more dialogue. She even gets smacked in the face, and her human eye is seen through her mask for a brief second before she falls to her death into this fiery pit. Now, you could argue that she could survive that, but whatever. You can theorize about that if you want. Either way, she's definitely dead now, and I'm not upset about it. Heck, they did give us what they promised. I remember back when Force Awakens was still out that everybody was upset about how Phasma was tossed aside. They did promise that in the next movie Phasma would do more, and well, she did. It may not have been what we wanted, but she did. And of course for Snoke, Snoke is killed off by Kylo Ren in the movie, which again was one awesome twist. It's one I did not see coming. Snoke has Rey in his grasp and tells Kylo Ren to strike her down with his lightsaber. And during all of that, Snoke has Rey's lightsaber sitting right next to him, very reminiscent of the Emperor from the Return of the Jedi. Her lightsaber sitting right next to him, and he is glimpsing with the Force into the future, just looking at these few images, or like premonitions of what's going to happen. That the lightsaber is going to turn, the lightsaber is going to ignite, and it will strike down on the opponent. The only thing is, which is a great deal of irony, which is why I loved this scene so much, was that the whole time Snoke was premonitioning about himself. Because Kylo Ren secretly turns Rey's lightsaber right to his gut, ignites it, and cuts him in half. Again, it's sad that Snoke was just tossed aside like that, because we don't know a dang thing about this guy, but for the twist and for the downright funny irony of it, I enjoyed this scene a lot. I really did. It did not disappoint me. It would be nice if in the next film Snoke might have a bit of backstory tone so we'll know who he was. Or heck, even better, Snoke could come back. If Darth Maul can come back in the Clone Wars cartoon series with robot legs, anything is possible. And of course, the last one was Luke Skywalker, which again, he was definitely tossed aside too, but not as bad. Basically, Luke dies at the end while trying to defend everybody with a very nice little detail, which I'll get to in a minute. And he decides to let his spirit go and be one with the Force, similar to Obi-Wan. And it's a very touching scene, but I'll get into that in a minute. Alright, that's all the negatives I had. Again, there were very few. I feel like I've jabbered on about it a little too long. Okay, the positive stuff. As I stated before, I did love the twists, the humor, and random other stuff that was in this. But as for just key spoiler scenes, the first one I want to talk about is the best. We are cut back to Rey and Luke on this island, this remote island that Luke has been hiding on for these several years, these many years. And just like in The Force Awakens, right at the end, Rey walks up to Luke. Luke turns to look at her while taking his hood off, and Rey holds out the lightsaber. Now, this was definitely a very iconic moment at the end of The Force Awakens, and for like 2 years, so many memes and jokes have been made about how long they've been standing there, yada yada yada. And especially the question was, what will Luke do seeing his lightsaber again? And after all that build-up, the most excellent thing happens, and I just laughed. I just enjoyed it. Luke looks at his lightsaber when he's given to him, thinks about it, then just tosses it over his shoulder out toward the ocean. Now, this definitely, like I said, it made me laugh. Because after all of that build-up, those 2 years of just questioning what will Luke do when he's given his lightsaber, he just throws it behind his shoulder and walks off and just shrugs and just shakes his head. It is hilarious, and honestly, it does a good example of setting up what this movie is. Because the number one thing this movie does is that it takes about everything that it was building up and you were hoping for, and just tosses it aside and goes in a different direction. It actually does make a pretty good imagery. It does make pretty good imagery. Then, of course, we got Leia. When I first heard about the movie and everything, and finding out about Carrie Fisher's death, I expected from the get-go that Leia was going to die in this movie. And at first, that's what it looked like it was going to happen. Kylo Ren has shot down several of the ships, of the resistance ships and all, and he's firing down on the main ship that Leia is in. She's in the command deck. Anyways, Kylo Ren is about to shoot at her, but his good heart nature tells him not to do it, so he backs off, but his 2 minions come in, shoot the cab, blow everybody up in there, including Leia, and Leia gets flown out into space. Now, when I saw that, I was thinking to myself that I'm not upset about this. I expected it was going to happen. I accept it. It's like, this was a decent enough way to kill her off. Okay, good job. But, surprise, surprise, a twist. Leia opens up her eyes, she holds out her hands, and using the Force, she pulls herself back to the ship, to the main door, and everyone lets her in, and she manages to survive. And I know that so many people are going to be so annoyed at this. So many people are so annoyed by this because it looks like she is flying, but she is not flying. In space, you cannot levitate yourself. You cannot actually fly in space. All that you can actually do is push or pull against space to get you moving into the right direction you want to go, because there is no gravity. So that's literally all she did. She held out her hand with the Force, grabbed onto something, and then pulled herself in, let go, and just the momentum and zero gravity brought her along to the door. Now, the biggest problem with this scene, though, I loved it, but the biggest problem that I feel that so many people had was that it was so overly dramatic. I really do feel that if it was shorter, if they just cut out a few things, if they maybe not made it so overly dramatic, it probably would not have gotten so many laughs that it did. But it's nowhere at all something bad, and it's a new Force ability that I enjoyed seeing because, of course, you should be able to push and pull things with the Force. It's no different than lifting up a rock, which is a joke in the movie, but yeah. Now we're just on to just the basic things on each character. For Luke Skywalker, I'll go ahead and get him out of the way. I've talked about him enough. Once again, Luke Skywalker has shown up in this movie. It's nice to see him. It's nice that Mark Hamill got a chance to play as him again. But nobody was too happy with how he turned out. No one really was that happy. I never understood why. The main problem that everyone had was that he was so different. Luke Skywalker in this movie goes into exile and has turned himself off from the Force. He has shut himself from the Force. He has shunned himself, shunned everyone in his family. He doesn't want anything to do with them, and he just wants to die. He just wants to basically perish on his island all by himself. Now, this is definitely a very dark turn from a character that many people grew up with. Now, this didn't bother me too much because, once again, this is realistic, guys. If you do something that is so devastating, that hurts you so bad inside, you're going to feel like this. You're going to feel that you just want to cut yourself off from the world, that there's nothing else you can do. How you cope with it is what you do. Now, Luke made the mistake not to try to make anything out of it, not to try to get better, not to make things different. He decided just to give up, and that's not the right thing to do. But again, this is realistic. Luke is a human being. Human beings will make mistakes. And Luke Skywalker decides to try to kill Ben Solo during his training, which is what led to everything. Luke tries to kill Ben. Ben retaliates and knocks out Luke, and Ben uses all the trainees to make up the Knights of Ren, which is what I believe the main theory going around is. That's the Knights of Ren, all the people that Luke tried to train. Luke feels guilty about this and banishes himself because he failed to create a new Jedi temple and a new Jedi order. He failed. Now, why would Luke try to kill Ben? Again, this is not hard to believe. It's called fear. Fear will cause anyone to do something stupid. Fear will cause anyone to do something that they regret doing, that they do not want to do, and it can cause anybody that you will look at and go, this guy will never do that. Oh wait, he just did that. Oh yeah, fear. Fear will cause that. As for his banishment, this was dealt by guilt. Fear, guilt, failure, all these things are connected. Everything on this is connected with Luke, and it's a good job. Again, I don't see Luke as being a bad character. I don't see him as being a portrayal of what Luke is supposed to be. These are all just realistic morals that any person would actually go through. It's again, it all goes about how they deal with it. And yeah, his way of dealing with it may not have been the correct way, but in his mind, it was the right thing to do. It only took inspiration and a little bit of a sense knocked into his head from both Rey and Yoda to change his mind. The benefit, though, is that Luke did resolve himself in the end. Right at the end, Luke uses a projection of himself to fight off Kylo Ren and everybody else over onto this this salt moon, this little salt mining moon. He defends off Kylo Ren and everything, and is shown to be a force projection, and right at the end he has one last glimpse into the sunlight on this desolate island that he is on, and fades away with the force, which is a nice little callback to episode 4, where Luke looks at the twin suns on Tatooine and wonders about his future. Again, everything about Luke in this movie I liked. It's a very nice resolution, very nice payoff. It was good. I enjoyed it. And again, Yoda is in this movie. Yoda shows up as a Force ghost, and again, does knock sense in his head literally. He whops him in the head with his cane, reminiscent of Rafiki from Lion King. I had to laugh with that little scene. And Yoda is played by a puppet, and it's nice to see a Yoda puppet again. But anyways, when it comes to some of the other random characters here that I wanted to talk about, the relationship between Finn and Rose, it could have been handled better. Everything with the chemistry between these two, it's like I can tell they were wanting to get a spark going. They have a bit of a spark going. These two definitely know a lot of techno babble with each other. They work off each other pretty well. I feel they can be funny together, but something was missing. That could have been better. It could have been better. Anyways, as for just other positives and all, there was also Rey and her training with the Force. Again, the Force is definitely looked at in a different light in this, but it does still keep its original idea. The Force being this matter that controls everything, that binds us and binds everything together. I'm sorry, couldn't help it. But the biggest thing from Luke's second lesson is that he talks about looking at the Force in a different light. In other words, the Force is not always what it seems to be. Luke definitely tries to hint at that he has become more like a gray Jedi, which, yeah, a bit of a dark idea, but it is there. And the biggest thing about this entire lesson on looking at it in a different light, it ironically does reflect the differences in the movie. It does a good job of reflecting the differences. This movie is different. It throws new ideas in. It takes some old ideas and washes them off and presents it in a different picture. That's what this lesson was talking about. It was pretty nice to see it that way. And again, as for the morals of the movie, letting go of the past, failure, that humans make mistake, and another one that even DJ, the codebreaker himself, brings up, is that not everything is about choosing a side. There is not always a light side or a dark side. There is not always the good guys or the bad guys, like the Resistance, the First Order, or in the original trilogy, the Republic and the Empire. It's not always just picture perfect. One side, one other side. It does throw a lot of realism in, because even in the real world, it's not all about choosing one side. One side can get benefit from doing things from another side, like trading ships or buying items for another side, another team. It is a nice little concept. This movie has definitely thrown in a lot of good morals and good messages and other good little hints, and definitely has shown things in different lights. It amazes me at how much this movie has actually done. Okay, and I'll try to be a bit more brief on the other characters I want to talk about. Poe Dameron. Now, again, the biggest thing about Poe Dameron is that at the start of the movie, he shows off that he is very cocky. He tends to make decisions for himself, not really much trying to get the glory. He's just doing what in his head is the right thing to do, even if it jeopardizes the mission. And that does not always work. In the beginning, a lot of people end up getting killed because of his mistake, but his team does successfully take down a dreadnought, which is this big, dangerous device that can destroy bases on the planets. So he does save a lot of people, but in the end, a lot of lives were lost as well. He gets demoted for it, and again, the second big mistake that he does is tries to go to Canto Bight to find the codebreaker that I talked about earlier, because they find out that Emperor Snoke's ship, like I said before, has a tracking device that can track things through hyperspace, so they have to go to Canto Bight to find the codebreaker to stop that. Leia is out of it because of being blasted into space, so General Holdo is in charge until she wakes up. Holdo does not agree with this, tells Poe Dameron not to do anything, just to shut up and sit to the side, don't do anything. Poe decides to do this anyways. In doing so, once again, he almost jeopardizes the mission, but they manage to escape. It's right here that in Poe Dameron's head, that stuff starts to tick and goes, oh wait, maybe I should not do this. Maybe there are times when you shouldn't go out guns ablazing like a silly superhero or something. Anyways, right on the salt mine planet, Poe does make his first turn. They are in these little skidding ships, little sticks that stick in the ground that helps them skid along the salt lines, and they're going towards the First Order with their big AT-AT like ships and everything, and this huge cannon that can blow a hole right into the main door. And their job, of course, is to shoot down the hole. Poe Dameron is determined to do this, but once so many lives are lost, Poe Dameron actually does the right thing. He tells everyone to turn back and to retreat. And everyone follows except for Finn, of course, who tried to sacrifice himself. But anyways, Poe Dameron does make the right choice. He finally does not try to go all guns a-blazing and take everything out and risk lives. He actually turns back. So Poe Dameron does have a bit of character change. He does have a conclusion. So it was nice that he was built up as his cocky, let's go shoot the bad guys person, and at the end he actually uses his brain. And as for Rey, just like Kylo Ren, I really do enjoy this character, and I really do enjoy the development that they've had. Both her and Kylo Ren, actually. The development of these two characters is definitely the highlight of the movie. And the way they work off each other is also really good. Rey is once again shown being able to do a lot more stuff, and it doesn't bother me at all that she's able to do all this, because once again, she is a Jedi after all. And Kylo Ren is definitely shown a lot more confliction in his thoughts and his actions and everything. And again, the way they work off each other works very well. Their minds are linked together through the Force, and they're able to interact with each other and talk to each other. And again, it's another new Force concept, which I do like. And like I said, I just enjoy the way they worked off each other. Their scenes were good, the action with them was good. And the biggest thing, of course, about Rey that's even revealed from Kylo Ren, it's most likely that Rey is not actually genetically connected with anybody in the Skywalker or the Solo family, which, again, is another fan theory that's gone on for ages. She is basically a nobody. And this ticked off a lot of people, but for me, it doesn't bother me because, for goodness sake, not every dang character in these movies has to be connected to somebody else. We don't need another Skywalker Jr. or Solo Jr. or whatever. And for all those that are upset about this, it's even possible that Kylo Ren lied. But again, overall, there are so many things about this that I'm so on board with and happy with. A lot of the changes they made I'd enjoyed. Some of them might be a bit disappointing because they were not covered enough, like Snoke dying. It would have been nice to know more about who he was. Maybe the next film will piece that together, thankfully. I do love the new direction they went. We are now ended off with Rey being the Last Jedi, Luke is gone, Kylo Ren has taken over the First Order, and plans to eradicate everyone and start over brand new. Very reminiscent of what Anakin wanted to do at the end of the prequel trilogy before he got turned into Darth Vader. It's very nice that the way we set up Kylo Ren now. I do like the new direction they went with him. I like the new direction they went with all these characters. And I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next. And of course, the only sad part about this that is a bit disappointing is that Luke has been killed off, Leia has survived. But in real life, Carrie Fisher is gone, and we still have Mark Hamill. And again, it's sad that she is gone, but for the next film, they don't plan to CG Leia in, so I don't know what they're going to do. Unless they do an off-screen death, or just flat out say in the opening credits or something that Leia is gone. It's like, I don't know what they're going to do. It is a bit of a disappointing circumstance. Hopefully, they will do something that is very respectful to Carrie Fisher for the next movie. But anyways, that was my spoiler review. I'm sorry that I rambled on for too long. And I'm also very sorry to all those watching that I took so long to get this out. For the last couple of weeks, I've had this crud that's been going around, so my voice has totally not been good. I've had sinuses and drainage, and I couldn't talk properly, and I couldn't sound good talking. So, this has been the best day I've felt. I am clear, so I finally got this out. About, what has it been, almost a month later? I'm sorry about that, guys. And stay tuned, very soon I will get some more figure reviews out. I haven't stopped doing figure reviews. I'll get some more out. I might even do another movie review or Blu-ray review some point down the road. But thank you all so much for listening to my babbling. This has been Geeky Austin.